to remind honorable members that when the House last rose, we were debating the Airport Development Bill. Honorable Member for Labrie.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to add my voice to the debate on the Airport Development Bill. And I shall use as my context, Madam Speaker, the contribution made by the member for Kaswi's North, where he spoke about the intentions of the government to build a first-class airport. He alluded to airports in Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Antigua. He referred to health facilities and many other aspects of the airport development. And so in my short presentation, Madam Speaker, I would like to reconcile the financing of the Hiwanoro Airport redevelopment in the context of the DSH, as well as the St. Jude's development, because it's quite relevant in that particular construct. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister cannot be talking about airport redevelopment, and he does not respect the need for the St. Jude's Hospital to respond to, among other things, aircraft emergencies, especially when it comes to mass casualty situations, and exporting aerodromes in Chapter 9, Paragraph 9.1 states, it's an International Civil Aviation Organization and document, and I quote, that an emergency plan shall be established and that the plan shall coordinate the response of all existing agencies, including medical and ambulance services. Madam Speaker, in a previous life, I used to be an air traffic control officer. And I know from the tower, the very first thing you do when you come in the morning is to ensure that the lines with St. Jude's, as well as the fire service, are functional. Those lines would have to be open in the event of an emergency, an aircraft incident or accident. So that St. Jude's Hospital is not only there to serve the St. Lucian public, but also our main medical facility in responding to aircraft emergencies when the need arises. Consequently, and notwithstanding the fact that we inherited a scope of works that was like a moving target, with no ready financing, we worked on St. Jude's throughout our 4.5 years in office by mobilizing funding from outside. While it was not completed during the 4.5 years, it was stopped by this uncaring and insensitive government. We have been calling upon the Prime Minister and the government to complete the St. Jude's Hospital urgently for the following reasons. 1, the stadium is not a hospital. 2, that the water, sanitation, and hygiene, what WHO would call WASH, at the stadium is not appropriate for a healthcare facility of that magnitude. 3, consequently, the stadium environment compromises the ability to provide safe and quality care and places both those providing and those seeking care at considerable risk. The stadium is falling apart, Madam Speaker. A physically threatening environment is also created at the stadium. The St. Jude's Hospital has from its birth played a pivotal role in providing care for uninsured persons who simply cannot pay for their medical bills. The St. Jude's Hospital is an integral part of the Southern Community Framework. This hospital plays a major role in the social and economic vitality of the country, particularly the southern part of the island. That only the St. Jude's Hospital would be in a position to respond to aircraft emergencies. You cannot deal with surgical centers because they provide surgery for persons who do not require hospitalization. You cannot do it in a doctor's office. Urgent care clinics will not suffice in that particular matter, and nursing homes for long-term care will not suffice in that particular context. The hospital would provide short-term care to patients with serious medical conditions. And of course, a hospital would have a spectrum of talents, physicians who are trained in different areas. You'd have well-trained nurses and specialized equipment and emergency situations and rooms to deal with situations of that magnitude. The United Workers' Party administration, from the time it got into office, it stopped work on the hospital. We need a hospital to respond to mass casualty. It has been stopped, and you're hearing about repurposing. The minister wants to talk about demolition of the hospital, and you're hearing all sorts of things. After it has been stopped for no reason, and unlike when we got into office in 2011, we didn't have any financing for the medical facility, but when they came in, they have millions of dollars to continue the works. They stop it. And nothing is happening at St. Jude's. After numerous warnings by the opposition failed to alter the posture of this government, the people have begun to march. As a party sensitive to national mood, we provided leadership in calling for the government to complete the St. Jude's Hospital, to resist the alternative use of the hospital, and finish the hospital so that it could provide the services, not just to the public, but in the event we need it for Hiwanora International Airport. Instead, Madam Speaker, of the government accepting the call of the people of this country, after the march, United PAC, which is the arm of the United Workers' Party, the PM and his United PAC, so nothing else to do but to attack the member for Labrie. Have photograph on the page indicating that I have a $2 million mansion and that I use St. Jude's material and I use St. Jude's funds to construct a $2 million mansion. Madam Speaker, you see where public funds are concerned? I believe that we should always, as members of parliament and as ministers, utilize public funds for the purposes intended. And I state categorically in this House, and I say to the leader of the opposition, if my family home utilized just 1/2 inch nail or 1 penny from St. Jude's funds, he must get rid of me with immediacy. We must develop a gross intolerance for corruption.
On a point of order, 35(5). No member shall impute improper motive to any other member of either chamber of the House. Madam Speaker, the member said that the PM and the United PAC is involved in making statements about his house and material for St. Jude being. I think that is imputing improper motive to a member of the House. I don't know that the PM ever said anything in relation to that.
I'm not going to. May I proceed, Madam Speaker? May I resume normal navigation?
Normal navigation cannot unfortunately move yet, sir. A point of order has been raised, unfortunately, that you're imputing improper motives toward the Prime Minister in respect of alleging that he supposedly is championing articles derogatory of you regarding, well, I'm paraphrasing, regarding your family home having used St. Jude's material. Is that what you said?
I said the Prime Minister and his arm, United Park.
Mm-hmm.
Because United Park, you look at the page, it's a UWP page, and he's the leader of the UWP. That's right. It's a formal page. It's well established. So I want to hear what exactly I said. I include the problem because I never said it here and wrote in the article. I'm not including any proper motives.
But you said you actually mentioned the Prime Minister. Had it been the United Park? Yes, but you actually called and mentioned the Prime Minister. The Prime.
I don't think so. If I'm offending against any standing order, I need to know what standing order I'm offending against because I have decided to have full respect for the Speaker and the standing orders of this House.
Honourable Member for Labrie, the reference to the Prime Minister in relation to the allegation that they assert that they are making assertions or allegations regarding your home being St. Jude's material being used for your home, I think is out of order. So you may resume navigation, but keeping the Prime Minister out of it in your statements regarding something that is really so it's actually casting aspersions. Now, if, for example, you can say the United Park, if the United Park attacks you in that way, if you've read the article and United Park attacks you, but you have no evidence that the Prime Minister is involved in the attack of putting articles in United Park, okay? Resume normal navigation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. In resuming normal navigation, I will have the Prime Minister to disembark from that particular journey. So you asked me to navigate without him.
Madam
so
Speaker,
I have divested
I am standing on a point of order again, Madam Speaker, same 45.5. When improper motive has been imputed to a member of this Honorable House, I think it needs to be struck off the record, Madam Speaker, because the records will show that the statement was in relation to the Prime Minister. And I think that part of the statement, he can say what he wants about United Park, but an honorable member of this House, that statement should not be made.
The statement will be struck off insofar as the name of the Prime Minister, the reference to the Prime Minister is made. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anything could be struck off, but the point is, I challenge those who are busy maligning me on Facebook to come with the flimsiest of circumstantial evidence to substantiate the claim. But I'll say something to you, Madam Speaker. The member for Labrie was raised in a family that was never involved in corruption, never involved in drugs, never involved in voodoo, or any type of things like that. the instrument of the wishes of the people of Library, was born at Martin Luther Street on the 20th of March 1967 in a 3,200 square feet home, big wooden structure. We were not among the petty bourgeois of the village. We were among the grassroots working class of the community. And at no time, Madam Speaker, my family ever got involved in anything. My father, George Stephen Fletcher, worked all his life from Marshall as a regional manager with farmers. Nobody ever pointed the finger at him. My grandmother, Attilia Fletcher, who used to take me along to the Adventist church with her, instilled some out of the ordinary values in me, which will not permit me, Madam Speaker, to engage in any wrongdoing. I know that wherever she is, she migrated voluntarily to the silent continents of eternity, and she's pleased that I am not involved in corruption, and I will never tolerate any corruption. You have never heard me stand in this house and call anybody corrupt. And I will come momentarily to my central reason, Madam Speaker, for indicating that. But I'll tell you, I know when you're in politics, people will say things about you. But I want, when they are coming with their allegations, that they come with evidence. Evidence to substantiate it. Because I can say to you, I know how we are going to proceed in that regard, Madam Speaker, with that issue. And this is not the last time you will hear of that situation. But you see, snap a photo of a house where my family lives and talk about $2 million. Madam Speaker, just for the records of this, for this house. My family never paid no $2 million for house. They didn't pay 1.5 million for house. They didn't pay 1 million for house. They didn't pay $500,000 for house. And that house was paid and purchased with legitimate funds. They are financial institutions. And renovated with legitimate funds. Not one penny could not be accounted for. So I want, when those who are snapping photographs and making all types of things are asked the question, that they can answer. I have no dealings with St. Jude's. I have no dealings with no contractor at St. Jude's. Simply because I went to the press conference as first deputy political leader of my party, together with the chairman of the party, and led that particular press conference about the match. We need to make an example out of you, the member for Library. Just like the Iraq chief on Hispaniola that fled from Hispaniola to Cuba in 1552. The Spaniards caught him in Cuba and burnt him alive in the presence of the other Indians, so that the other Indians wouldn't think twice.
Is it Indian? Okay.
Yes. The other Indians would not rebel. But I'll tell you something, Madam Speaker. All my fear is in the direction of God. I'm a God-fearing man. And everything I do it for the glory of God. And if God has already written in his book the exact moment of my birth and the exact moment of my death, but make sure in representing the people of my constituency and the people of St. Lucia that I shall have no fear. I fear none of them, whatever they come with. But I'll tell you, I have a responsibility to defend myself in such encounters. Now, it looks like big house is for some people. It looks like it's only UWPs that must live in a big house. Big house seems to be something for members opposite. I never live in a small house. My mother never lived in a small house. My brothers and sisters never live in any small house. Okay? So I want people to understand that you'll not tell me where to live. It's just like the UWP's philosophy some time ago when they were in office. All scholarships were given to their friends. That poor people's children, are not deserving of opportunities. The laptop program for the poor have been taken away and given people that can afford. That is your attitude. But I'll tell you, if tomorrow I can buy a helicopter, it's within my means, I'll buy my helicopter. Don't ever believe that I cannot account for what I have. Madam Speaker, I was not roaming the streets and byways of this country when I entered politics, you know. From being an air traffic controller, I served as the assistant airport manager. I served as acting airport manager when I left. When I came from England, I went to the highest office in civil aviation in this country, where I resigned to enter politics. I stayed 18 months out of a job before elections was called in December. And I took care of my mortgage, I took care of my student's loan, and I took care of my affairs. I took care of my affairs. I did not enter politics because I wanted fat professional salaries. I did not enter politics because I wanted a happy rest. My people called me, and so I responded. And I knew that I was actually climbing to the pinnacle of political sacrifice. So when you come for me, just know I'm not a novice in politics. In fact, my training in aviation and air transport taught me a few things. When an aircraft is in flight, and in the context of the airport redevelopment, when an aircraft is in flight, 4 forces act on that aircraft: weight, lift, thrust, and drag. I knew that the weight of public office, the responsibility of my own commitment to my people, my family, my children, and other persons, to balance it would have dragged me into a lot of nonsense. But the thrust that I put in, I utilized my God-given potential to ensure at all times that the thrust that I put into it with my talents, my skills, my commitment to the public welfare, that I will experience lift. And in that way, because of my energies, my skills, my commitment to the public welfare, when we were in office, I was able to do things for my constituents and do things for my country. So instead of taking materials from St. Jude's, instead of taking monies from St. Jude's, and I don't know how that was possible, I actually negotiated for millions of dollars for St. Jude's. Millions of dollars for the water project in Dennery. In fact, $13.32 million in Dennery. Because health facilities embrace the whole compass of preventive health facilities. Good food, good water, good housing, and a clean and wholesome environment, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I said I'm not a novice in politics, and I'll tell you. I was raised in the jungle of politics. And I'm quite conversant with life in the political wilderness. In the words of Douglas MacArthur, we are always reminded of the loneliness and utter desolation of jungle trails when in opposition for almost 30 unbroken years. Election after election, we were chilled by the wind and rain of electoral defeats. We fought through the forest of political oppression in my constituency. And we were passing through the mire of shell-shock roads of victimization. I am versed with the political realities on the ground, Madam Speaker. I knew I had to swim in muddy and filthy waters of UWP propaganda. But incidentally, my birth sign is Pisces, and I'm the fish, so I can swim in difficult waters. And when they are deep with sharks, God comes and He provides a bridge over troubled waters. So, Madam Speaker, do not expect me in politics to have fantastic bank salaries. I will manage my resources, manage my affairs, and allow God to take care of it. I will give all that I came to do to my people. I'll serve my country until God decides otherwise. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister cannot speak about airport development if he does not pay attention to obstacle limitation surfaces around the Hiwanora International Airport. All structures around or in the immediate vicinity of the Hiwanora International Airport must comply with obstacle limitation surfaces. Safe airport operations require a permanent monitoring and assessment of possible infringement of the OLS as prescribed by the relevant regulation contained in documents such as ICAO Annex 4. Madam Speaker, to ensure sustainable future growth and the safety of aircraft and airline passengers, airspace surrounding an airport must be protected from inappropriate development. There is a question. With the DSH development that they're pushing, they're looking for development. How does that impact the amount of monies that they're going to invest in the airport redevelopment? You want to put buildings in the approach path of an aeroplane. That cannot work. How do we reconcile the DSH with what is supposed to happen at the airport? I think the Prime Minister, in summing up, will have to indicate to us what's going to happen. If we have to extend the runway to accommodate Airbus 380s, which of course our runway needs to move to a new category, it needs to be lengthened and widened, the parallel taxiway, because not only passenger comfort is important, but the passenger safety is also very important. Whether we are going to have a parallel taxiway, because 777 sometimes go to the turning bay and get stuck. If we have a parallel taxiway, it would obviate the necessity of those things. So I want to understand exactly where the Prime Minister is going with this manger cochon, so to speak. You want money for airport redevelopment, but you want to put buildings of DSH all around the airport. You do not want to continue with St. Jude's. I want to understand what is going on, where these are requirements for you to operate an international airport. Well, I want the Prime Minister to understand that as long as they remain like that on St. Jude's, not completing St. Jude's, not working on St. Jude's, or they want to repurpose or they want to demolish, we are going to march. The Prime Minister must understand one thing. This is our primary facility in the South. Our primary facility. We have resources available. Complete the hospital. If you went somewhere in the world and you saw some hospital that you believe will improve health tourism in St. Lucia, find a piece of land and do it. But complete St. Jude's Hospital. You cannot have people at a stadium falling apart. All sorts of things are happening at the stadium. It is because the Prime Minister and those who laugh, they do not need St. Jude's because they can take an ambulance and go to Miami and go all over the world and receive medical treatment. So they don't care. There is no urgency. The member for Kasri Southeast, right through the 4.5 years we worked. But why you stop it? You stop the hospital. You went to do a witch hunt about some report, a report that you could have asked my 3-year-old son to do for you. He would only charge you about $5. You know, you're going to pay a lot of money to do a report, to find nothing. To find nothing, and you had a handover report. You had a handover report that was crystal clear. What is the problem in not proceeding with completing St. Jude's if this government believes that I am like the Iraq chief that they caught in Cuba and burned alive to send a clear message to the rest of the Indians? If you all think that's what you all come and do in the South, you all are making a mistake. I'm a calm man. But I am concerned about the people I represent. And this is why we made sure throughout the 4.5 years, we worked to complete that hospital. And you just stop it and you laugh as if, you know, that's no problem. Not having St. Jude's and having St. Jude's is the difference between life and death. Is the difference between life and death for the people of the South. If anything happens in Oje, anything happens, it's St. Jude's we have to go to. But you cannot have people in a stadium. If people, by the time they're going to see the doctor, stadium falling apart, the stadium may fall on them. The disease probably that they went to the hospital to be treated, they cannot. So tell me, what is going on here? Our national priorities are of no consequence. We want to build an airport. But we want DSH to come. We want Jack Lam to come. We want T.O. King to come and do all sorts of things. Now, Madam Speaker, let me make it very clear to this Honorable House. I do not see this government interested in legitimate investment into this country. I see you're looking for political allies. Now, I remember what happened to Cuba under Baptiste. Like as if a group of people involved, they're in government, they're involved with Jack Lam and T.O. King as if those people are gods, and the rest of cabinet are mere appendages to the affairs of a little clique. That happened in Cuba, Madam Speaker. And Catherine A. Sunshine summarized it beautifully when she said, and I quote, Havana in the 50s became the capital city of organized crime. and anything goes Disneyland run by the mob, and a major conduit for narcotics flowing into the United States, alongside the rocketing casino trade fueled by mob-organized junkets from the mainland, the satellite rackets, prostitution, narcotics, and wholesale abortion spun into profitable orbit. Unquote. We cannot allow the government, Madam Speaker, to assume exclusive and complete control with a little clique of the political and economic affairs of our country. We must not become like Baptiste's Cuba, where the country belonged to a corrupt ruling clique, foreign corporations, and wealthy tourists. We must ensure at all times we put the necessary controls so that our island does not become a rogue state, Madam Speaker. Because anytime you have those elements in office in other parts of the world, we saw what happened under Batista. Because guided by the greed and the cruelty, they did as they pleased. They would stop at nothing, however odious and hellish, in accomplishing their ends. They would commit murder against the exploited majority, the class order maintained by any means necessary. I do not want our St. Lucia to become like Santo Domingo during the reign of that dictator Rafael Trujillo. Like Batista, Trujillo ruled ruthlessly, eliminating opponents through exile, torture, imprisonment, and murder. Economically, Trujillo brought large portions of the Dominican economy under his control. And if I may reach out for sunshine again, Madam Speaker, and I quote, it was hardly coincidental that new roads often led to Trujillo's plantations and factories, and new harbors benefited Trujillo's shipping and export enterprises. Ultimately, Trujillo, along with his relatives and friends, owned well over half of the country's economic assets. By the time of his death, Trujillo was reckoned to be one of the richest men in the world, with a fortune estimated from several $100 million to $1 billion. Unquote. Madam Speaker, I listened to the debate earlier about people just accusing others, crossfire, all types of things are happening here. And I'm saying to you, and I've said that before, for years I have been saying, you see, when we give the outside world the impression that politicians are corrupt and their corruption in this country, we are jeopardizing our chances of attracting legitimate monies into our country for our business. In order to preclude our country from becoming isolated and corrupt, we must ensure voice and accountability, political stability, government effectiveness, integrity, and the legitimacy of the state and the rule of law, and efforts to expose and deal with corruption. Today, voice and accountability. What has happened to it? Like a great American once said, the spirit of democracy is flickering like a dying lamp in this country. People are tortured for honest opinion. Where is Riani right now? Political stability. If the government does not listen, Madam Speaker, it will affect the cohesion and the stability in this place, where we cannot make economic and social progress. When you are not listening to people when they infer disagreement with the positions taken by you. Integrity and government effectiveness with some kind of cluster arrangement. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. A minister in there, an apagal kind of business. Buy a pagal. Integrity and legitimacy of the state and the rule of law. We have no respect for our constitution. No respect. The government had a deputy speaker. Tomorrow the deputy speaker resigned. And then they said when it's convenient to them, they have a deputy speaker. They do us all types of things. Look, they have STEP. The political operatives in the various constituencies, they are the ones running STEP. They fire people from NICE program, and then they commit all the atrocities and come and ask the opposition to join them. If a government is not behaving in an appropriate way, if we come here and accept deputy speaker, you know what we are doing? We are giving legal sanctions to all what they are doing. And the international community cannot afford to view us in the same way, because we are not doing those things. And that is why, for me personally, I will not victimize people. I represent everybody. When a government gets into power, it must obey the laws of the country, and it must ensure some peaceful coexistence between persons of different religious background, different political affiliation. We cannot cannibalize our own, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, as I prepare to close, I want to speak on the efforts to expose and deal with corruption. And the reason why I would choose that subject as I close, Madam Speaker, it is because if we as a country do not deal with all of the issues of corruption, of perception that we are sending out there, by always have some document, always trying to indicate that somebody has done something wrong, it's going to affect even NGOs in the country. Because if they believe that the society as a whole is showing some tolerance for corruption, then we are going to be penalized. And I do not believe that St. Lucia is what a lot of people portray St. Lucia to be. We are trying to make strides. You have hard-working people in the public service. You have hard-working people in the parliament. We are a microcosm of the society. And obviously, not everyone will be the same. So anti-corruption practices must be mainstream into our country's practices and conduct. This is why upon resuming office, in a not-too-distant future, numerous anti-corruption programs and projects will be put in place by our new Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Joseph Pierre. In certain jurisdictions, government sectors responsible for the national crime prevention strategy establish respective program committees to work on corruption in the criminal justice system. For example, Madam Speaker, in South Africa, by June 1997, the Code of Conduct for the Public Service had become part of the regulations for every public servant and was the subject of an ethics promotional campaign by the then Public Service Commission. The National Anti-Corruption Summit was held in Cape Town in 1999. The central purpose of the summit was to discuss the importance of eliminating corruption in both the public and private sectors and to develop recommendations aimed at improving the investigation and prosecution procedures, implementing effective and coordinated anti-corruption structures, reviewing the legislation, and enhancing businesses' role in the fight against corruption across society. We cannot just point to the parliament and always believe that we can just engage in some kind of things with politicians that are corrupt. No, that's not the case. If we are going to deal with corruption, it's not in the parliament to say, well, there's a corrupt set of people and everybody else okay. We have to discourage corruption by ensuring that we do things across the board to be more transparent as a people. Involving businesses, organized religious bodies, the NGO sector, donors, the media, organized labor unions, academics, professional bodies, and the public sector, the summit created a powerful platform for the national campaign against corruption through its recognition of the societal nature of corruption and its acknowledgement that the fight against corruption requires a national consensus and the coordination of activities. We need a new and improved legislative framework to deter corrupt practices. Again, I must refer to South Africa. A review and revision of anti-corruption legislation, the establishment of whistleblowing mechanisms, the establishment of special courts to adjudicate on corruption cases, and the establishment of sectoral and national coordinating structures were recommended and implemented. A new Prevention of Corruption Bill was developed. A Protected Disclosures Act commenced in February 2001, while the Promotion of Access to Information Act came into force in February 2000. The National Anti-Corruption Forum was established in June 2001. The promotion and implementation of sound ethical, financial, and related management practices. A central database of corrupt businesses, the National Directorate of Public Prosecutions, and of course the African police have taken decisive and visible action against corrupt officials and white-collar crime. At the level of government, about 80% of cases reported in the media are in fact discovered by government. That I wanted to share with the parliament of this country. Madam Speaker, if there is corruption in our country, we need to deal with it. If we are not corrupt, we need to stop pointing fingers at people. You know, you get something and you're eager to just attack people. I don't engage in that. You see my children, I want to be a role model to my children. I don't want nobody when I leave this earth for them to say your father was this or your father was that. And I actually, under my tutelage, I raise my kids to respect others, to respect the law, do not insult people. You see, I come to the parliament, I will speak hard, and I will tell you finish St. Jude's. But I refuse to attack people personally. But I want them to know that the same capabilities that they have to attack me or members on this side, we have it too. So when you're trying your long-range ballistic missiles, just know that we have that capability as well. Just know that. Just know when the little rocket men are sending the thing from that side, just know what you all are doing. So, Madam Speaker, returning to the airport redevelopment as I close, is to indicate one thing. We must never leave the door open to speculation as to what is happening in this jurisdiction. You cannot have one arrangement with the World Bank, and for no reason you scrap it, and then you come and, you know, the member for Castle Southeast, you know, you are a brave politician. I listened to you attentively, and you did a number there on the IFC, you know. But I think we need to be a little bit more careful when we speak about institutions that we have to interact with in the future as we negotiate for us to create the fiscal space in our country for us to do our business. So, Madam Speaker, that's my only warning, but certainly I will never oppose any effort for the government to borrow monies to redevelop Iwanora International Airport. The tower is a hellhole. The tower is not good. We need to develop the technical aspects, and so I have no difficulty whatsoever in monies being utilized to redevelop Iwanora International Airport. I thank you, Madam Speaker. It is all